Today, Sogra and her daughter set out on a rugged mountain path. They passed through a cave to get to the other side of the mountain to pick wild apples, also the children at home could have a taste of the mountain's sweet crispness. This morning, Sogra was in the yard sifting flour. The family had already finished all their flatbread, and it was time to make more to stock up on this staple food. This flour was ground from their own wheat, but because it didn't go through the fine, multi-stage filtering of a factory, it was often mixed with bits of wheat husks, grass seeds, and even small pebbles, so it had to be sifted first. Now, it was time to knead the dough. Sogra used ice water to mix the dough, which helps it ferment more evenly. Dough kneaded with ice water is also easier to roll out and has better elasticity. You might wonder, where did the ice come from? They use solar power to run a small refrigerator, occasionally making a little ice to meet the need for keeping food fresh for short periods. The children gathered around Sogra, watching their mother's flour-dusted hands knead the dough in an aluminum pot, afraid of missing a single movement. Yasin, in particular, was the most captivated. Zara was wiping and cleaning a large, thick-bottomed flat pan. It didn't have a high, steep edge, making it perfectly suited for spreading out a large, round flatbread. After the dough was ready, it was time to start cooking the bread. Sogra connected the hose from the gas canister to a multi-burner gas stove. This wasn't an ordinary cooking stove, its burners were evenly distributed, a design intended for making flatbread that ensures the bottom of the pan heats uniformly, preventing one side from burning while the other remains raw. Zainab and Zara pulled off large pieces of dough, and rolled them into fist-sized balls, waiting for their mother to roll them out. The children prepared the raw materials while their mother handled the key steps. This not only saved time but also allowed the children to learn the craft by helping. The dough was quickly rolled into a thin, round sheet. When the circle of dough was almost large enough to cover the entire board, she would lift it and flip it in the air, preventing over-rolling from damaging the gluten, while making the edges thinner for more even cooking. When Sogra stepped away for a moment, Yasin immediately came over, mimicking his mother's actions to roll the dough. Soon, Fatima also gave it a try. The children's curiosity and participation filled the home with laughter and a lively atmosphere. Whenever Sogra made bread, she never just casually rolled out 2 or 3. She had to make enough large flatbreads at one time to ensure the whole family, young and old, wouldn't have to worry about their next meal for some time. In their daily lives, this thin, large flatbread is an essential staple at almost every meal. In the morning, it can be torn into small pieces to dip in yogurt. At noon, it's used to wrap freshly cooked lamb and vegetables, and in the evening, it might be paired with a fragrant pot of bean soup or stew, torn and dipped until every last bit is eaten. As soon as a large flatbread came off the pan, its toasted aroma filled the air. Yasin and Fatima had long been swallowing their saliva at the smell. Zainab brought over a bowl of yogurt, and the brother and sister tore off a piece to dip into it. This simple way of eating is the most rustic daily reality for a nomadic family. After just one bite, they both gave a thumbs up in unison, exclaiming how delicious it was. Whether the bread was truly that tasty, or if they were just naturally sweet talkers trying to please their mother, is hard to say for sure. After a while, Sogra finished cooking a whole stack of large flatbreads. At that moment, she noticed a group of unexpected visitors on the road in the distance. It was the neighbor's sheep, and they were looking for water. Hussein was shooing them away because their family didn't have enough water either. Sogra's family water tank had been empty for a full 2 days. The family had to conserve the water they drank, and their overall supply was severely stretched. The reason for the water shortage was that the local water truck hadn't come for the past 2 days. Originally, the pastoralists' water supply depended entirely on government water trucks that made regular deliveries to their doorsteps. But recently, the situation had changed. Due to the massive annual pilgrimage, all the water trucks were temporarily reassigned to serve the crowds of pilgrims. As a result, the task of supplying water to the pastoral areas was put on hold. As she put on her socks, Sogra said helplessly, "There's nothing to be done about the water shortage. Let's go pick some apples to eat." Besides, the children were craving them, and she needed to satisfy their request. Zainab filled up a water bottle, getting ready for the trip. Before, when the water trucks came, fresh water was delivered directly to the nomads' homes. Without this convenience, they had to go to the mountains to fetch spring water, a round trip that was not only time-consuming but also physically demanding. Once everything was ready, the mother and daughter slung their cloth bags over their shoulders, and set off on the mountain path to pick apples. It was autumn, the time of year when the fruit trees in the mountains were at their most bountiful. Pears, apples, and grapes were all ripening one after another. During this season, Sogra's family would go into the mountains every few days to pick wild fruit. They followed the mountain path and stopped in front of a cave. The mother and daughter carefully went inside to check. Inside the cave, there was a deep pit, dark and bottomless. Sogra said it was likely the den of a bear or a leopard. This cave was the only passage to get to the other side of the mountain. Zainab was a little scared, so Sogra made some noise to build up courage for both herself and her daughter. After crawling out of the cave, the scenery before them opened up, and they were one step closer to their goal. Caves like this are very common in the landscape of the Zagros Mountains. After walking for a long time, you get used to encountering a dark cave entrance at any moment. Just after leaving the cave, Sogra saw some herbaceous plants on the ground. She decided to pick a handful to take back with her. She said that boiling them in water to drink helps alleviate chest pain. These wild medicinal herbs are gathered and taken home to prepare for the winter in advance. It's like adding an insurance policy for the family. When the snow blocks the mountain roads and no fresh medicinal herbs can be found, these herbs will come in handy. The mother and daughter now continued along the mountain path. The road on the cliff's edge was narrow, with some spots only wide enough for one person to pass. To an outsider, it would be terrifying, but for them, it was just an ordinary autumn journey. A passage like this on the cliff face is a masterpiece carved by millions of years of wind and rain in the Zagros Mountains, forming a ribbon-like platform halfway up the cliff. The walk along the cliff edge was not always flat and safe. In some places, the stone path, which had been reasonably wide, would suddenly break off, requiring them to step across carefully. Sometimes, the cliff face overhead was so low that they had to bend over and sidle through slowly. The mother and daughter now arrived at a slope on the cliff's edge, where a leafy apple tree was growing. The tree was laden with green fruit. To their delight, the apples on this tree had been virtually untouched. The green fruits were of a medium size, not small, but not large either, just the right size to fill your mouth with a single bite. They were mostly hidden among the branches and leaves, not very conspicuous from a distance. This apple is a local mountain variety, adapted to the climate and soil here. They are cold and drought-resistant. Even in a barren environment with large temperature differences, they can still produce fruit that is moderately sweet and sour. For the nomads, these apples do not rely on careful cultivation but are entirely a gift from nature, yet they often have more flavor than fruit from cultivated orchards. When ripe, the skin of this green apple is not a uniform emerald green, but may have hints of pale yellow or small spots. The skin is thin but firm, with a fine layer of wax that makes it feel slightly smooth. When you take a bite, you first hear a crisp crunch, followed immediately by a wave of sourness on the tip of your tongue, carrying with it a hint of natural sweetness. The apple tree was not very tall, nor was its canopy very wide, and the fruit on its branches was scattered. The mother and daughter quickly picked all the apples. The harvest weighed only about 2 kilograms in their hands. Although it wasn't much, in the barren, rocky, and thin-soiled Zagros Mountains, finding even a small bag of fresh apples in the wild was already very good. Sogra then discovered that a tree nearby had been chopped down. The cut was smooth, clearly man-made. Sogra condemned the people who randomly cut down trees, because her family relies on these trees for their fruit. To cut them down at will is to destroy the very foundation on which their survival depends. Now, the mother and daughter took out a green apple, rinsed it simply, and prepared to taste it. One bite, and the sourness immediately flooded their tongues, while the sweetness was faint. Compared to the green apples bought in the city, these mountain apples were smaller and not as juicy, but they possessed a certain wildness and strength. This was the taste of something that had grown with all its might in barren land. After eating the apple, the mother and daughter slung their cloth bags over their shoulders and set off on the mountain path back home. On their way there, they had crawled through caves, traversed narrow paths, and climbed over cliffs. Now they had to return the same way, with no shortcuts. The stretch of road before them was the most thrilling of the entire journey. The mountain path had almost completely disappeared, leaving only a ledge the width of a palm clinging to the side of the cliff. They had to press themselves tightly against the cliff face and inch their way across. Watching them move so cautiously was nerve-wracking, even for an observer. After passing the breathtakingly dangerous cliff path, the mother and daughter finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ahead of them was a slope covered in loose gravel. They half ran down it, the stones crunching under their feet, eager to bring this mountain harvest home to their children's hands as soon as possible. After a long walk on the winding, rugged mountain roads, Sogra and Zainab finally returned home. As soon as Yasin saw his mother's figure, he immediately began to wave his arms and dance, his body twisting and turning in a dance to welcome his mother's return and set the stage for the apples he was about to receive. Today, the eldest son, Mehran, was also home. With him there, the house was even more lively. The children's laughter and playful shouts filled the small yard of the nomadic family with warmth and joy. Each child got a green apple and bit into it with a loud crunch. Yasin suddenly declared, "I don't have any teeth," making everyone laugh out loud. Sogra picked a relatively softer one for him, but Yasin still couldn't bite it. He was in the middle of losing his baby teeth, with only a few sparse little teeth left in his mouth, which were no match for the crisp, firm green apple. As the children munched on their apples, Yasin couldn't bite his, but Sogra would cook the apple to soften it, allowing her young son to taste the sour and sweet flavor of the mountains as well. The whole family sat together, talking and laughing. There were no lavish dishes, no luxurious pleasures, but at this moment, it was lively, warm, and peaceful. This was their simple life.